New Year's. The big time of the year most people celebrate, marking the end of one year and the beginning of the next. One could argue a good time is being in Times Square to watch the ball drop. When the ball does drop, we shout and cheer to a parade of fireworks, for the start of the new year is now. Especially going into 2026, we say goodbye to 2025, prepare for all that's to come in the new year. However, one New Year's Eve would be very unfortunate for many, as a deadly train collision in the state of Utah would change many people's lives forever. This would become known as the Bagley train wreck, but to many, this become known as the Great Salt Lake disaster.
48 lives were taken last night as two Southern Pacific trains have collided. 79 reported hurt in this freak accident.
It's the morning hours of December 31st, 1944. The Southern Pacific Railroad's Pacific Limited train was making its usual way from Chicago to Oakland, California, where from there, people were ferried from Oakland Pier into San Francisco. The Pacific Limited was an intercity passenger train running on the famed Overland route, linking Portland, Oregon, Oakland and Los Angeles, California, and Chicago, beginning operations on April 3, 1913. Initially running as trains in 1920, until being renumbered numerous times, and finally being renumbered to 21 and 22 in June of 1942. This was a jointly operated train with the Southern Pacific Railroad handling the train from Oakland to Ogden, Utah, the Union Pacific handling the train between Ogden and Omaha, Nebraska, and east of the Missouri River to Chicago. It'd be handled by either the Milwaukee Road or the Chicago Northwestern. The day of the wreck, the westbound train 21 had departed from Chicago the prior Friday, December 29th, and normally would travel as one long consist consisting of more than 30 cars. But on this occasion, the train was split in two. The first section, designated First 21, would run as a passenger train, with the second section, Second 21, running as the mail express portion. First 21 consists of 8 coaches filled with passengers and military personnel returning home from the European front during the ongoing World War II. The train consisted of a mail storage car, a baggage mail car, 3 baggage express cars, 2 hospital cars, 7 coaches, a dining car, and 3 Pullman-built sleepers led by a Class GS3 484-4425. The crew on board consisted of an engineer, a fireman, a conductor, and 2 brakemen. The train would depart Ogden at 4:38 a.m., 38 minutes late.
Following behind was Second 21, the mail express train, with 20 cars. 6 box express cars, 6 mail storage cars, 2 baggage cars, 2 express cars, 2 express refrigerator cars, a baggage express car, and a coach on the rear, being led by an MT4 Class 482, number 4361. The crew on board Second 21 consisted of 64-year-old engineer James McDonald, fireman Emmy Hardman, conductor J.W. Welch, and brakeman D.E. Altman and C.A. Russell. Second 21 would depart Ogden 12 minutes following the departure of First 21 at 4:50 a.m., running 50 minutes late. Things seemed to be fine for the 2 trains at first, although not that much further up ahead, there was some trouble. An unusually long and heavy freight train had left Ogden Yard earlier that morning, but around Bagley, roughly 17 miles west of Ogden, the train started having problems, which was speculated to have been a hotbox. The freight would have to stop, and the crew would need to see what was wrong. The flagman of the freight would provide protection, signaling the crew of the First 21 to come to a stop after passing a couple restricting signals, alerting them of the danger ahead. The crew of the First 21 would comply, and it slowed down to about 8 miles an hour. However, Second 21, seemingly unaware of what was going on ahead, was still speeding behind, doing 65 miles per hour. When the crew of 4361 sees the first train ahead of them, they throw on the brakes, hoping to slow the train down. But it was already too late. The trains collide at 5:14 a.m. The force of the collision was brutal. 4361 plows into the rear sleeper car of the passenger train doing roughly 50 miles an hour, tearing it apart. The next car ahead had somehow escaped heavy damage, but the next few cars ahead weren't as lucky, as they were badly damaged as some had jackknifed into each other. The 16th car, Pullman Tour sleeper number 4263, crashed into the 15th, dining car 10102, and the 13th car, coach 1264, crashed into the 12th, coach 1147, causing significant damage. A combination of steel and wooden coaches turned into shambles of twisted steel, splintered wood, broken glass, and torn bodies. As for the second 21, 11 cars derailed, some piling up on the crosswalks on the track behind the engine, with some sliding down a causeway embankment into shallow water of Salt Lake below. Help was very quick to respond, as the 6th and 7th cars of First 21 were hospital cars manned by members of the United States Army Medical Corps. Until more help arrived, staff with equipment and supplies would tend to the injured. News of the wreck would reach Ogden at 6:30 a.m., and 3 rescue trains with physicians and nurses would be dispatched to the scene, with the first train leaving Ogden about an hour and a half after the collision occurred, then arriving at the scene about half an hour later. Upon arrival, they would see passengers roaming about the scene doing what little they could to ease the suffering of the more badly injured. As the rescue trains were being sent out, the Red Cross Disaster Service was mobilized. 38 nurses from D Hospital arrived, with 14 going to Bushnell Hospital in Brigham City to care for the wounded, and another 60 nurses were on call, ready to help if needed. The operator of the Ogden Cafe, directly across the street from the rail terminal, set up a first aid station, removing everything but coffee and tables, and would turn the cafe over to the Red Cross.
When a train brought victims back to the terminal, many citizens would jump into action, bringing food and clothing, help with the medical care and the transportation of the wounded in the emergency vehicles. City officials also set up around 100 cots at the Ogden Armory, and Hills Air Force Base sent buses with 75 soldiers to help with the crash site. The scene of the wreck would be hard to access, as either side of the right-of-way ran along a causeway across desolate mud and shallow water extending several miles through marshes. And with no nearby highway access, the numerous ambulances available wouldn't be able to reach the site, and unfortunately, aid could only access the site by rail. As soon as the injured were treated and placed aboard the rescue trains, 4425 and 10 of the train's 18 cars would proceed west from the site and continue on to Oakland. As many waited to hear what happened to their loved ones, hoping they'd be okay, unfortunately, the damage had already been done. A total of 50 people lost their lives, including Engineer McDonald of 4361 and Brakeman Durden of the first train, and at least 35 military personnel. At least 83 more people were injured, some of who were also soldiers. This is the worst passenger train wreck in the state of Utah. Of course, there were questions to follow. What could have caused this wreck to happen? Why did so many have to die? An investigation into the wreck will be undertaken by railroad officials as well as agents from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or the FBI. The FBI led to the possibility of sabotage, but no evidence could be found to support this theory. The further investigation revealed disturbing findings. Now, the line of the trains were running on, the Lukton Cutoff, was a 102-mile line built between 1902 and 1904, running between Ogden and Lucan, with its most prominent feature being a 12-mile rail trestle that would cross the Great Salt Lake, along which the collision occurred. This line was double-tracked and equipped with automatic block signals. The plan was for the first train to stop and proceed with caution behind the freight train that was stopped ahead of it. The first train had seen the preceding stop signals, and the crew was preparing to stop, with Brakeman Durden providing protection for the train, dropping a flare and placing 2 torpedoes on the tracks, alerting the second 21 to stop behind them. There was a report of heavy fog the morning of the wreck, and according to Fireman Hardman of the second 21, he stated he missed the first stop signal because he didn't see it due to the heavy fog. But when he saw the second signal, he yelled over to Engineer McDonald and he applied the brakes. However, according to him, sluggish in responding and putting on the brakes with them being applied only 12 seconds before the violent impact. When investigators found Engineer McDonald's body in the cab of the now damaged engine, he was found in a position that would suggest he had been incapacitated prior to the collision. Later autopsy found that McDonald had suffered a heart attack while at the controls of his locomotive, and they believed he was either incapacitated or even dead just before the trains collided. After more thorough examination, it was revealed that though the engineer was a casualty of the wreck, it was the heart attack that killed him, not injuries sustained from the wreck. Try that for a New Year's nightmare. In the end, the cause of the wreck was the crew of the second 21 failing to comply with restricting signals due to the fog and the engineer unable to comply in time due to him suffering a medical episode at the controls. Could this accident have been prevented had maybe another engineer been there instead? Perhaps it's something we'll never know.
In the end, the 12th, 15th, and 18th cars of First 21, Coach 1147, Diner 10102, M Pullman Sleeper, the late Cushman, as well 4361 of the second train, were damaged beyond repair and scrapped. 4425 was undamaged and returned to service. It would continue running for a little over 11 more years, but sadly, due to the onset of dieselization, 4425 would be withdrawn from service and retired on May 14, 1956, and by July 13th, it was scrapped. As for the SP's Pacific Limited train, it would continue on in service a little longer, briefly operating as simply the Pacific, though unfortunately, the service would ultimately be canceled on October 1st, 1947, being replaced by the Gold Coast service, replacing the former, as well as the San Francisco Challenger on the Overland route, offering a streamlined service with first-class and coach accommodations between Chicago and San Francisco. Although unfortunately, the Gold Coast service would be discontinued in 1955. As for the briefly mentioned line the trains were running on, the Lucin Cutoff, it would be used by the SP until the late 1950s, with the original wooden trestle being replaced by a parallel earth-filled causeway. Because by the 40s, the trestle was deemed obsolete, a choke point due to having only one track left, and deteriorating so badly to the point where much more money would need to be spent than what was deemed acceptable. Simply too expensive to fix. It wouldn't justify repairing it. The trestle remained in place for occasional freight service until 1970, when it was closed for good, salvaging its timber, though remnants of the old structure, as well old boat wreckage would appear as the Great Salt Lake continued to shrink. A lumber store called Cannon Structures Incorporated acquired salvage rights of the trestle and would dismantle and reclaim the massive timber structure, which was made up of Douglas fir and redwood. Removal of the old trestle began in the early 90s, and by 2000, the trestle had been completely demolished, with the wood still being sold today for construction and decorative purposes. Today, the Lucin Cutoff is now operated by the Union Pacific as a significant part of the current Lakeside subdivision, running between Ogden, Utah and Wells, Nevada.
81 years have passed since this terrible tragedy. Even now, the Great Salt Lake wreck remains the worst passenger train wreck in the state of Utah. Though a lot has changed since that day, the memories of this collision will still be remembered in history by many forever. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'm very happy to end 2025 off with this documentary. It's been a long time since I've been really getting to uploading now, and since last couple months I'm finally getting the groove again, and I'm hopefully we'll be trying to get one or so documentaries out every month or so. But thank you all so much for watching. Have a happy New Year's Eve, and see you guys all in 2026.